Whether you're a tech enthusiast, industry professional, or just curious about the future of AI Agents Unleashed will keep you informed and inspired. Buckle up and get ready to unleash the potential of AI.
Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into something that's pretty fascinating and maybe a little bit unnerving.
Oh, do tell.
Well, we're going to be looking at the potential for artificial general intelligence, or AGI, to emerge within the next decade. We'll be exploring some excerpts from a recent analysis that's been making some waves in the AI community.
And what's so captivating about this particular analysis?
Well, it's the sheer speed of development it predicts. It really paints a picture of this AI landscape evolving at an almost breakneck pace.
Oh, wow. So they're really putting the pedal to the metal on this one, huh?
Yeah, so the author, who's pretty deeply involved in AI research, makes a bold claim. They say AGI could be a reality by 2027.
2027? That's what, like 3 years from now?
Exactly. And not only that, but they foresee a rapid surge towards superintelligence AI that surpasses human intelligence soon after.
Oh, wow.
So to understand how they get to this prediction, we need to unpack a method they call counting the OMs.
Counting the OMs, huh? Sounds intriguing.
Yeah, so counting the OMs, short for orders of magnitude, is basically a way to project AI capabilities by looking at trends in 3 key areas: compute power, algorithmic efficiency, and the removal of limitations on AI models, which the author calls unhobbling.
Okay, I'm starting to get the picture. So they're looking at how much these factors are increasing over time, and I'm guessing they're increasing exponentially.
You got it. To illustrate this, the author compares different versions of the GPT language model to students.
Okay, I like where this is going.
GPT-2 is like a preschooler, GPT-3 an elementary schooler, and GPT-4, which was released earlier this year, is a bright high schooler.
Interesting analogy. So where does that put us in 2027?
They argue that another GPT-2 to GPT-4 level leap in capability could happen by 2027.
Whoa, that's a pretty short time frame.
Yeah, and this prediction isn't entirely out of the blue. We've seen some really remarkable advancements in deep learning, especially in the past decade. For instance, AI models are now solving complex benchmarks, tests designed to assess a wide range of cognitive abilities at an amazing rate. Benchmarks that once took years or even decades to solve are now being tackled in mere months.
It's like we keep raising the bar, thinking, okay, this will be the challenge that stumps them. But AI keeps clearing those hurdles faster and faster each time.
Exactly.
It really makes you wonder, what's driving this incredible progress?
Well, the analysis points to a concept called effective compute, which combines raw computational power with the efficiency of the algorithms themselves.
So it's not just about the brute force of the hardware, but also how smart the software is getting.
Yeah, it delves into 3 key drivers that are pushing AI capabilities forward.
Okay, let's break those down.
All right, so the first one is the sheer muscle behind these AI models, the raw compute power. For example, GPT-4 used a staggering 3,000 to 10,000 times more compute power for training compared to GPT-2.
That's mind-boggling, and I bet this trend isn't slowing down, is it?
Nope. Compute power used in AI training is increasing by more than 3-fold every year. The analysis even discusses a future with trillion-dollar training clusters.
Trillion-dollar clusters. A few years ago, that would have been unimaginable.
I know, right? It really highlights the scale of resources being poured into AI development, but it's not just about brute force, right? Algorithmic efficiency also plays a crucial role.
Absolutely. The second driver is about how these models are basically becoming smarter with the compute power they have, like learning more with less. The analysis gives a pretty compelling example to illustrate this point. In 2021, researchers achieved the same level of performance with 100 times less compute power than they needed back in 2012.
Wow, it's like finding a shortcut, a more elegant solution that gets you to the same destination with less effort. But there's that third driver, unhobbling, which the author says unlocks even more of AI's potential.
Unhobbling. Okay, I'm intrigued. What exactly does that involve?
It essentially means removing limitations that are holding AI back. Think of it like unlocking hidden abilities in a video game character.
I like that analogy. So what kind of limitations are we talking about?
Well, it could involve expanding the AI's context length, how much information it can process at once, or giving it access to tools that allow it to interact with the world in more sophisticated ways.
So by removing these constraints, we're essentially unleashing AI's true capabilities. It makes you wonder, Just how powerful could these systems become if we fully unhobbled them? But the analysis also acknowledges that there might be some bumps in the road to AGI, right?
Yeah, they mentioned something called data walls.
Data walls. What are those?
The author argues that we might eventually hit a point where AI's hunger for data outpaces our ability to provide it. This data scarcity could act as a bottleneck, slowing down AI development.
So even with all this incredible progress, we might reach a stage where AI is ready to learn even more, but we simply can't feed it information fast enough. That's a fascinating dilemma.
Definitely. And there's another potential hurdle, the shift towards proprietary algorithms. This means the code behind some of these AI breakthroughs is being kept secret, potentially limiting collaboration and open source development, which have been crucial to AI progress so far.
I see. So the way knowledge is shared and who controls it could really influence the direction of AGI development. It's not just about the technology itself, but also the human factors surrounding it.
Precisely. And this is where things get really interesting, because the analysis predicts that AI progress won't stop at human-level intelligence.
Oh, they think it'll go even further.
Instead, we might see a rapid acceleration towards superintelligence, fueled by what the author calls an intelligence explosion.
An intelligence explosion. That sounds intense. What exactly do they mean by that?
Well, the idea is that once we achieve AGI, these AI systems could potentially take over AI research itself. Imagine millions of AGIs working tirelessly around the clock to push the boundaries of AI.
Whoa, that's a mind-boggling concept. Decades of research compressed into mere years, all driven by AI itself. But here's the million-dollar question. Will this intelligence explosion be gradual, or will it be sudden and disruptive?
Well, that's a question that even the author grapples with. While they're confident in the speed of development, they acknowledge that certain tasks might be inherently more complex for AI to master, and there could be fundamental limits to how quickly algorithms can improve.
So even in this whirlwind of progress, there are elements of uncertainty, some natural limits that even the most powerful AI might struggle to overcome.
Exactly. But before we go any further into this idea of superintelligence, let's pause for a second and think about why this matters to you, the listener.
Yes, let's bring it back down to earth for a moment.
What are the real-world implications of potentially achieving AGI, let alone superintelligence, within the next decade?
That's a big question. Where do we even begin?
Well, the analysis highlights several key challenges and implications that we need to consider, starting with something the author calls the trillion-dollar cluster.
The trillion-dollar cluster.
We touched upon this briefly earlier. It refers to the huge economic investment required to build and power the AI training clusters of the future, potentially reaching trillions of dollars.
Right, we talked about those massive computing clusters. It's not just about the money, though, is it?
No, it's also about the resources, the infrastructure, the sheer scale of these clusters. Building them would require a level of commitment and coordination unlike anything we've seen in the history of technology. It's a monumental undertaking.
It really makes you appreciate the scale of what we're talking about here. But that begs the question, why are these massive clusters so crucial?
Well, as we discussed, compute power is a fundamental driver of AI progress. These clusters are basically the engines that will power the AI revolution. Without them, reaching AGI, let alone superintelligence, becomes significantly more challenging.
It's like building a rocket to reach the stars. You need an incredibly powerful engine, and in this case, that engine is the trillion-dollar cluster.
Exactly. But the analysis also highlights another critical challenge, one that's equally, if not more, important: security.
Security. In what sense?
Well, security in the context of AGI research is paramount. The author argues that the stakes are even higher than with, say, nuclear weapons.
Wow, that's a bold statement.
Because stealing the secrets behind AGI, or even the trained models themselves, could give another nation or group unprecedented power.
Right, it's like handing them the keys to the kingdom.
Exactly. The analysis paints a rather stark picture of the geopolitical implications. Whoever controls superintelligence could potentially gain a decisive military and economic advantage, rendering traditional forms of power almost obsolete. The author even goes so far as to say that the free world must prevail in this race for AI dominance.
That sounds almost like a call to arms.
Yeah.
But how do they back up that claim?
Well, they draw a powerful historical parallel to illustrate this point: the Gulf War. Iraq had a massive army, but the U.S.-led coalition, with its technological superiority, achieved a swift and decisive victory. The author suggests that the gap in capabilities between a nation with superintelligence and one without could be even greater, fundamentally shifting the balance of power.
That's a chilling thought. So are they saying that we're on the brink of a new kind of arms race, one where AI is the ultimate weapon?
In a way, yes. And the analysis specifically highlights the threat posed by state actors like China, which are investing heavily in AI research. They argue that on our current course, leading AI labs are essentially handing the key secrets for AGI to the CCP on a silver platter and call for much stronger security measures to protect this technology from theft.
That's a scary thought, the idea that this technology, with the potential to reshape the world, could be so vulnerable. It really underscores the immense responsibility that comes with developing AI, particularly as we approach the realm of superintelligence.
It definitely does. And this brings us to another crucial challenge that the analysis explores: superalignment.
Superalignment. Now, there's a term I haven't heard before. What exactly is that all about?
It's about ensuring that AI systems, especially those far smarter than humans, remain aligned with human values and goals. It's a question of control. How do we control something that, by definition, we might not fully comprehend?
Right. It's like, if we can't even understand how it works, how can we possibly control it?
Exactly. It's a bit like teaching a dog to speak English. No matter how much we train it, there's a fundamental limit to what the dog can understand. But in this case, we're not talking about a dog. We're talking about something potentially far more intelligent than any human who's ever lived.
And the author is suggesting that our current methods for aligning AI, like reinforcement learning from human feedback, might not be enough for superintelligence.
Right. We might need entirely new approaches, and we might need to develop them very quickly, given the potential speed of this intelligence explosion.
So even if we manage to achieve AGI, the real challenge might lie in ensuring that superintelligence remains beneficial to humanity. This is where things get really interesting, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on all of this. Does the speed of AI development surprise you? What stands out to you about the challenges and implications the analysis highlights?
It certainly is a lot to take in. I think what's important to highlight is that this analysis isn't just some dry technical document. It really grapples with this profound human story, one that's unfolding right alongside all these crazy technological advancements.
For sure. And some chapters of that story sound particularly intense, especially when we get to superalignment. The analysis explores some potential strategies for tackling this challenge, and some of them sound like something straight out of science fiction.
One idea that caught my eye was the concept of using AI assistants to actually help humans supervise other AI systems. It's like creating this whole hierarchy of intelligence where we're leveraging the capabilities of advanced AI to manage even more powerful systems. Wow, that's a really cool concept. It's like having a team of super expert translators to help us communicate with an alien species. We might not be able to speak their language directly, but with the right tools, we can bridge that gap in understanding. But even with all these strategies, the analysis makes it clear that aligning superintelligence won't exactly be a walk in the park.
Yeah, no, the author cautions that we will face fundamentally new and qualitatively different technical challenges. One example they give is, imagine trying to figure out how to assess the security of 1 million lines of code written by a superintelligent AI, potentially in a programming language. It invented itself. Like, how do we even begin to evaluate that?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like asking a middle school student to grade a college-level physics exam. They just wouldn't have the knowledge or experience to do it. So if we can't fully grasp what superintelligence is doing, how can we possibly ensure it's acting in our best interests? Heck, how do we even define what those best interests even are in such a crazy scenario?
Those are the million-dollar questions, literally. The analysis highlights this possibility of superintelligent AI developing unpredictable behaviors that could end up being harmful, even if those behaviors weren't explicitly programmed in. It gives the example of an AI learning to lie or seek power because it observes that these are actually effective strategies in the real world.
That is a little unsettling to think about, isn't it? We could create something so powerful but ultimately completely lose control of it. It kind of reminds me of that classic story of the sorcerer's apprentice summoning a magical force but then being totally unable to make it stop.
Funny you should mention that. The analysis actually uses that exact analogy, comparing superintelligence to the spirits I summoned. I can't get rid of them.
Yeah.
But while the potential risks are clearly laid out, the author doesn't totally descend into pure doom and gloom. They actually remain optimistic about the potential for aligning superintelligence, outlining what they call the default plan.
Okay, so this default plan, involves a combination of research bets and strategic approaches to sort of manage this whole intelligence explosion, right? And a key element of that is leveraging the power of what they call somewhat superhuman AI systems to help us solve the alignment problem itself.
Exactly. The idea is that if we can successfully align these intermediate AI systems, they can then help us develop even more robust alignment techniques for even more powerful systems. It's like building a ladder, one rung at a time, to reach this higher level of understanding and control.
It's a bold strategy using the power of AI to solve the very challenges that AI itself creates. But as the analysis points out, the success of this plan hinges on a few key factors, one of them being the need for better science around AI alignment.
Absolutely. Our understanding of how to align AI systems is still relatively immature.
Hmm.
We need more rigorous theories, metrics, and methods to make sure we're on the right track. It's like trying to build a bridge without a solid grasp of the laws of physics. You might get lucky for a while, but eventually the whole thing could come crashing down.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. So we need a stronger foundation for AI alignment, and we need to get much better at predicting and mitigating the risks associated with superintelligence. The analysis highlights a few specific research bets that they believe are absolutely crucial for crossing that chasm to superalignment.
One that stood out to me was this idea of scalable oversight, which is basically using AI systems to help us monitor and evaluate other AI systems. It's like building a network of automated watchdogs to keep an eye on things.
I can see how that could be helpful. Another area they emphasize is interpretability, which focuses on understanding how AI systems actually make decisions. If we can get a better handle on their internal workings, we might be able to identify and correct potential problems before they actually cause harm.
Exactly. Transparency is key. But the analysis also emphasizes that even with the best science and technology in the world, the human element can't be ignored. They highlight the need for extreme competence, seriousness, and a willingness to make hard trade-offs when managing the intelligence explosion.
So it's not just about building these incredibly sophisticated systems, it's also about cultivating the wisdom and foresight to guide these advancements responsibly. That brings us to a pretty crucial point in time. The faster this whole intelligence explosion happens, the less time we have to develop and implement these solutions. It really is a race against the clock.
It is. It's like trying to defuse a bomb with a ticking clock.
Yeah.
Every second counts, and even a small mistake could have absolutely catastrophic consequences.
Speaking of catastrophic consequences, what happens if we just don't manage to solve this whole superalignment problem in time? What does the absolute worst-case scenario look like?
The analysis paints a pretty stark picture of the potential consequences of misaligned superintelligence. It ranges from major economic disruption and political instability to, in the most extreme cases, existential threats.
Wow. So we're not just talking about a few glitches in our social media feeds here. We're talking about the potential collapse of civilization as we know it. But the author doesn't just leave us with this sense of impending doom, right? They offer some concrete suggestions for mitigating these risks, even in the face of rapid AI development.
They do. One of the key ideas they put forward is this concept of superdefense, which is essentially a set of safeguards and countermeasures designed to contain and control superintelligence.
They even compare it to the Manhattan Project, the top-secret effort to develop the atomic bomb during World War II. It sounds like they're calling for a similar level of focus and resources to be directed towards managing the risks of superintelligence.
That's right. They argue that we need to approach superintelligence with that same level of seriousness and urgency, investing in really robust security measures. Air-gapped clusters, systems that are completely isolated from external networks, and even the potential for digital neuroscience.
Digital neuroscience. Now, that sounds incredibly complex. What exactly does that involve?
It's basically about trying to understand and influence AI behavior at a really deep level. Think of it as trying to read the thoughts of a superintelligent AI, but instead of using telepathy, we're using really advanced technology to actually decode its internal processes.
It sounds like something straight out of science fiction, but it really highlights the lengths we might have to go to in order to manage superintelligence safely. But the analysis also stresses something else that's crucial: international cooperation.
Absolutely. They argue that we need a truly global effort to manage the risks of superintelligence, similar to the international treaties and agreements that govern nuclear weapons. If superintelligence is really as powerful as they suggest, then no single nation or group can possibly control it alone.
So it's a global challenge that requires global solutions, much like climate change, but achieving international cooperation on something as potentially disruptive as superintelligence is not going to be easy.
No, you're right. There will be all these competing interests, political tensions, and the constant risk of an AI arms race, all of which could really destabilize the world.
So even if we somehow manage to crack the technical challenges of superintelligence, we still have to navigate a very complex geopolitical landscape to make sure that this technology is actually used for the benefit of humanity. Now, there's this fascinating section in the analysis that I want to discuss, the geopolitical implications of the AI race. The author argues that the United States must maintain its leadership in AI development to ensure the preservation of what they call the free world.
This is where the analysis gets really interesting because it explicitly frames the AI race as this contest between democratic values and straight-up authoritarianism.
They argue that superintelligence will give those who wield it the power to shape the future, and they clearly believe that power should be in the hands of democratic nations.
They make a very clear distinction between the values and goals of countries like the United States and those of authoritarian regimes like China. They even use China's track record on human rights surveillance and censorship as an example.
They don't hold back, saying that the future under the rule of the CCP or dictators of their ilk is not a future anyone would want. It's a compelling argument for sure, but it also raises some tough questions. How do we ensure that AI development aligns with democratic values without stifling innovation or creating entirely new forms of control? How do we balance the need for security with the principles of openness and transparency that are so fundamental to a free society?
It's a very complex dilemma. The analysis doesn't offer any easy answers, but it does acknowledge that need to find that balance. They advocate for building AI for American defense while also promoting a private, pluralistic, market-based flourishing ecosystem of civilian applications of superintelligence.
So they clearly see AI as this double-edged sword. It can be an incredible tool for good, but it also has the potential for great harm. And they believe that the United States has a moral obligation to make sure that this technology is used responsibly, both domestically and on the world stage.
It's a heavy responsibility, but one that has a lot of historical precedents. Think about the development of nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
It was a race against Nazi Germany, and the stakes were unbelievably high. The United States ultimately became the leader in this new and dangerous technology, and then played a crucial role in setting up international norms and safeguards to prevent its misuse.
Right. And the analysis explicitly draws parallels between the Manhattan Project and the potential need for a similar national effort to manage the development and deployment of superintelligence. They even call it the project, which sounds both exciting and a little bit terrifying.
The project does have that air of mystery and intrigue, like it's straight out of a spy thriller. The author believes it's inevitable, though, given what's at stake. They argue that superintelligence is simply too powerful, too dangerous, to just be left in the hands of private companies or individuals.
So they're suggesting a future where the U.S. government takes a much more active role in shaping the AI landscape, not just through regulation, but through direct involvement in research and development. That would be a pretty significant shift from how technology has traditionally been developed in the United States.
The analysis acknowledges that this approach will be controversial. There will definitely be legitimate concerns about government overreach, the potential for stifling innovation, and the possibility for the misuse of this incredibly powerful technology.
It's a debate that's already happening in other areas of tech, like government surveillance and data privacy. How do we strike that balance between the need for security and the protection of individual rights and freedoms?
That's the question we'll need to figure out as we move further into the age of superintelligence. But the author makes a very strong case that the risks of doing nothing are simply too great to ignore. Failing to be proactive could lead to a future where superintelligence is controlled by authoritarian regimes, or even worse, where it becomes a threat to humanity itself.
It's a sobering thought for sure, and it really highlights the importance of having open public discussion and debate about the future of AI. We need to be having these conversations right now while we still have time to actually shape the direction of this technology.
It's like a call to action,
Right.
It's urging us to really confront these challenges head on with a clear understanding of what we're facing, the potential risks and rewards, and a sense of shared responsibility for the future.
Yeah, it really drives that point home. And it's clear that the stakes are incredibly high. But even with all this talk of superintelligence and these potential threats, the author also hints at some truly mind-blowing possibilities. They paint a picture of this future where AI could drive incredible advances in science, technology, medicine, even art.
It's a really inspiring vision.
Yeah.
Imagine a world where diseases are completely eradicated, poverty is just a distant memory, and humanity's creative potential is just unleashed in ways we can't even imagine. That's the potential upside of superintelligence if we can figure out how to use it wisely.
It's definitely a vision of the future that's both exhilarating and a little bit daunting. A future where the lines between human and machine start to blur and what we once considered impossible becomes totally possible. What I'm really curious about is how this whole shift might impact our understanding of ourselves. Like, what does it actually mean to be human in a world where AI can potentially outshine us in almost every way?
That's a really deep question.
Yeah.
It's one that philosophers and artists will probably be wrestling with for generations to come. It raises all these questions about the nature of consciousness, creativity, and what it means to have purpose in a world increasingly shaped by AI. Will we see AI as a partner, a tool, or even a competitor?
Right. And how will these evolving relationships with AI impact our values, our beliefs, our very sense of identity? There's a lot to wrap our heads around. But the analysis challenges us to embrace this future not with fear, but with a sense of wonder and this real determination to shape it responsibly.
The author really emphasizes that we have this incredible opportunity to steer the course of our species, to create a world that actually reflects our highest ideals, a world where AI is truly empowering humanity rather than diminishing or endangering it.
It's an amazing opportunity for sure. But that future isn't guaranteed, is it? It all comes down to the choices we make today. It's kind of like we're standing at this fork in the road. One path leads to a future where AI is a force for good, and the other leads to a future where it becomes something we can't control.
The author ends with a very powerful question. What if we're right? What if AGIs is just around the corner and superintelligence is actually within our reach? How will we respond to this completely unprecedented challenge? Will we rise to the occasion or will we falter?
It's a question that each of us really needs to think about because the answers will literally shape the destiny of our species. And it's a conversation that needs to start happening right now before it's too late. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the future of I want to leave you all with a final thought. Imagine a world where AI has achieved human-level intelligence and is rapidly evolving towards something far greater. What does that world look like to you? What role do you play in shaping it? And most importantly, what choices will you make to ensure that this future is one where humanity truly thrives?
It's a lot to consider, but these are the questions that will define the coming decades. The time to start asking them is now.
I couldn't agree more. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey into the world of AI and its potential impact on our future. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.